I really believe that our greatest opportunity to have a sustainable business is to get as niche specific as possible, because that reduces layers of complexity. And when we have complexity in our businesses, we have vulnerability. You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 59. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire.
So, Sabrina, today is finally the day. It's launch day.
Holy smokes. I'm so glad it's here.
What is this the launch day of?
How to Hire the Best Contractor Edition, Mike. It's about time.
My worst fear and my worst nightmare, hiring employees and keeping employees.
Yeah, well, I think we're finally going to solve that problem. Like today, once and for all, we're going to put that pain behind you, right?
We are. And all of your tools and tips and tricks and insight has definitely helped me. So tell us a little bit about what makes this book so exciting. And I know you've put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel? And just tell us a little bit about what's been going on and tell us about the book.
All right. So how do I feel? I feel totally excited. When you write a book, it's all this behind the scenes, solo, by myself kind of thing, which is great because I'm an introvert. I can do that all day long. And it's also very lonely. So as we've gone into the launch and promoting it, I've really been enjoying feeling like in our ambassador group, everybody getting excited and getting behind the launch and really wanting to be a part of getting the word out about the book. And so that's given me a renewed enthusiasm for this. And I'm really just glad that the writing part is behind me. I'm ready to get the word out. Got the energy for that now.
Yeah, and that is so exciting. And I'm sure like myself, there's so many people excited for you. And, we had an opportunity to review the book and, read through the draft, and was packed with so many awesome things. So it's been exciting watching the journey, and it's super exciting now that the book's going to, be launched out and help so many other people. So tell us a little bit more about, why. Why did you, put another version of the book out, and tell us a little bit about the system and the program?
Okay. All right. So the piece that I think is so critical to understand is that every time I'm at a conference or I'm talking to another entrepreneur, there's one challenge that comes up over and over across the board. It's hiring. Like that is the hardest part of being an entrepreneur. None of us feel like we're good at it. And whenever we are hiring someone and they don't work out, we usually decide it's us, like we are doing something wrong as an entrepreneur. There's something we're missing. And the reality is that people are complex. I have a PhD in psychology, and I will be the first to tell you, I got a doctorate in psychology because people baffled me. I wanted to understand, like, why do people do the things they do? And most business owners don't come into entrepreneurship with a PhD in psychology, and dealing with the people side of the business is the hardest piece. And it can be the part that really throttles the growth of the business. And I love to see business owners grow. I love to see entrepreneurs going after opportunity. I don't want to see them throttling and keeping the business small and playing small, because they can't have success in hiring. So for me, this book, the How to Hire the Best series, is about putting an end to the greatest challenge that entrepreneurs face, and that is the hiring challenge.
True. As you said, most entrepreneurs don't have a PhD. I know that I needed to go see a psychologist after trying to figure out how to deal with employees. So
yeah, that's how you and I came to be working together. You're like, I need a psychologist to help me with this issue. This is more than I can do. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of our clients at Tap the Potential have sought us out, is because they want to get a handle on not just solving the people challenges, but really creating a great place to work. And so many of the business owners that we work with come in and say, I want to create a great place to work. And yet when we get into it, their employees, their team members would say, this isn't a great place to work. But there's like a mismatch going on. Like the business owner has the absolute intention in their heart. They really are sincere. They want to make it a great place to work. And then the behaviors that come out and that get translated into the culture are not aligning with that. And so that's what I get so excited about, is taking entrepreneurs who really want to create a great place to work and showing them how. And the other thing that I think is what really inspires me is just some of the actions that I teach are so simple, but they're counterintuitive. They don't come to us naturally. But once someone like me says, just go do this, trust me, just go do it. And they do it, they come back and they're like, oh, that went really well. My team really liked that. That was successful. That's when I get excited. That gives me the energy to keep going and keep doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that was always so important for me when we were working together was that just the mindset shift. So the tools that you provided actually allowed me to back my intention with real world, mindset shift in myself, so that my behavior, my thought process, my thinking was completely different and changed. And that was key. There's so many books out there and so many systems out there that go over the same exact thing over and over and over again, right? How to create a culture and hire some employees and do this and do that. But a lot of it is also changing the mindset and the delivery on the business owner.
Yeah. And, on the podcast, we talk a lot about, at Tap the Potential, we help you be the leader that you need to be to build the team and the company that you want to have. And you're speaking right to, that's the core piece, is how we work with you around your mindset so that you can line up. You have this intention, then you get the mindset that supports the intention, and then the behaviors that come underneath that, and it all starts lining up together. And that point where team members and family members start saying, Mike's different. Somebody else, they say the business owner is different. We see the change. And that's how I know all of this is working the way it should.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure you remember how discouraged I was. And, I was in the pits when it came to dealing with employees. And, I was just so frustrated over years and years of doing the same exact thing. Right. And I was just doing the same thing wrong over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Right. But, you definitely taught me about the learner judger path and, so many different things around, just the mindset shift. But then with the mindset shift, also developing a system, right? So a system for hiring and, how to find A players. So, maybe just give us a couple quick little, highlights of that part, because that part is also, huge. I mean, it is huge.
Well, so in doing this over the years, I have come to develop the Tap the Potential solution to creating a highly profitable, great place to work that will allow the business owner to have freedom to do things like take a 4-week vacation or pursue other endeavors. And the solution works in the tightest of labor markets. And I think that's a big piece to wrap our heads around, is to understand that hiring is always going to be an issue in these businesses. And sometimes we're going to have very tight labor markets. Right now, we're in a time where we have a very tight labor market. So if we intentionally design our business to be sustainable in the tightest of labor markets, we're actually designing a business that has the potential to be highly profitable and that will be able to grow regardless of what's going on with the labor market. So it's a sustainable business that can go forward, which, that's our mission here on the Profit by Design podcast, is to support entrepreneurs in designing sustainably profitable businesses. We have a whole podcast around part 1 of the Tap the Potential solution. It's that important. And so there's 5 key aspects, 5 key strategies in the Tap the Potential solution. And the solution comes from the successful execution of all 5 strategies, and they come together to create that highly profitable, great place to work. So I want to go through these 5 parts of the solution. Number 1 is to design your business to be sustainably profitable. And in the book, I share this story when one of the kind of the childhood issues that I had was I was in a public school for the first 2 years that I was in elementary school, and it wasn't a good fit for me. And my parents took me out and they put me in private school. And I was very quickly thrown into being a fish out of water, so to speak. And my peers that I would go to school with would be getting dropped off in their parents' Mercedes, BMWs, and my parents were dropping me off in our powder blue Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. And I really I was 8 years old. I noticed very quickly there was a difference between the cars my peers' parents drove and the cars we drove, the clothes they wore, the clothes that I wore. I came home the first day for school and I said, Mom, I need one of those alligator shirts. She said, I got you. Well, she's Dutch, so she didn't say it like that. She has a Dutch accent. But essentially, the message was, I got you. She took me to Sears and got me a dragon shirt. I didn't know the difference. I'm 8. I'm like, okay, it kind of looks like an alligator. It'll be fine. Oh my gosh. I went to school the next day and I might as well have been I was really stood out. And at the dinner table, I would sit every evening and complain loudly to my parents about their shortcomings, that, you're not driving the right car and we don't dress right and we need to have a fancier house. And because I'm not fitting in at school was the whole thing. And my dad and mom said, you know what? Here's the thing you need to understand. Those parents that are dropping their kids off in the Mercedes and BMWs, you can drive that kind of car, you can live in that nice house, and you can have all the alligator shirts that you want. But you may be drowning in debt while you're doing that. And I'm 8. And I'm like, so what? What's the big deal about debt? I don't get it. Let's just go into debt. And my dad is a banker. And, he had to maintain confidentiality. Obviously, he couldn't go into specific detail. But he was strong in alluding to those same people in the drop-off line at school are the customers that I'm having to call in the evenings because they are behind on payment on their loans. They are small business owners and they are behind on their payment on loans. And I didn't get it. I was still upset with my parents. I don't want to say that resolved it, but what that left me with all my life is understanding what's on the outside may not really reflect what's going on the inside. It wasn't, it's full circle. Here we are now dealing with entrepreneurs, and we are, in the profit first world, we're on a mission to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty, the business owners who struggle to be profitable, who are, up to eyeballs in debt. We have a lot of folks coming in at Tap the Potential who have thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, credit card debt, on their personal credit cards, business credit cards, 20% plus interest rates. And it feels like, how do we ever get out of debt? And we're taking them through the profit first system and getting them out of debt. Debt is crushing. And I didn't understand the impact of debt until I went to graduate school and came out with a boatload of student loans. And when you're in graduate school, everyone just says, let's go out to eat and, let's go have a good time. We're in Austin, for heaven's sake. You want to have fun and enjoy the lifestyle. Jazz clubs and things like that. And so I racked up the debt and I come out and then I get a job and I start having to make the monthly payments on that debt. Oh my gosh. And that's fine when you're single and you don't have a family and it's just you. That's manageable. But then we started looking at, now we want to have kids and we're going to have to save money for their college. And we should be saving for retirement. We can't do any of that because we've got this huge debt now. And so that's how I ended up in Wyoming, is because I went through the National Health Service Corps, because they would send me as a psychologist into an underserved area. If I committed for 2 years, they wiped out my debt. That was like winning the lottery, especially when I looked at the interest that was building up on those loans and what that was going to save me over time. So I was like, I'll go to Wyoming. No problem. Wherever you want to send me, the farthest reaches. So in that experience, though, I really came to appreciate how important it is that we think about the lifestyle that we want to have and be intentional in our decision making in our businesses and in our personal lives around taking on debt. Because, you and I have talked about it, and we tease about it like your sign. You were really proud of that sign, and it was a very nice sign, but it also, I'm going to let you tell the story about your sign.
Yeah, sure. So, ever since I was younger, so, that early 20 range, when I would drive through all these, business kind of downtown business areas, I would come across those beautiful wooden signs with the, metallic gold interior, the letters or, silver or whatever it was. And I always wanted one of those signs. I mean, it was like, I love the way it looks. It must mean that the business is, everything's A-okay, everything's perfect, right? And it's just, seems like it adds credibility, so the underlying, point of the story is, at a certain point, I did get one of those signs and it cost me a lot of money and I really shouldn't have spent the money on the sign, and that sign didn't make my business more profitable. That sign, it was a purchase that I shouldn't have made, but I made it because I thought it was going to get me something in my mind, but it really didn't, right? At the end of the day, the flashy stuff, the fancy car, the fancy house, and those things that you were telling in your story, what's in the front doesn't necessarily mean the health of the business in the back. And, we were just talking about this the other day where somebody said to me, I should probably stop wearing jeans on this job site all the time, and start looking like, more of a project manager or more of a, executive level on this job. And I said, to me, I don't care if I'm wearing jeans and if they're dirty, right? Because I'm on a construction site. And then I went into this story where I knew this guy who just was disheveled all the time, ripped up jeans, always, old flannels, but he was like a multi-millionaire, like an empire that was huge, right? With like hundreds of trucks and, it was a big like statewide company, and if you saw him in a deli or, convenience store or walking down the street, you would think he had maybe like, not even 2 nickels to rub together, So, it all has to start with the profit, right? So that's the first stage of the system.
Yeah. Well, I want to make one more point about this. You and I have talked about it a lot, that in the entrepreneurial world, there's a lot of flashy entrepreneurs out there in internet land, and they give the impression that, you're going to read, if you read one book a day, then you can have a garage filled of all your books and your fancy cars. Like somehow that's a connection. And if you buy their program, and, they'll drive these 7-figure launches and put that out there on the internet. But just because somebody can drive a 7-figure launch doesn't mean their business is profitable. And at the end of the day, it's not about how much we make. It's about how much we keep. And it's about the peace of mind that we feel. And so that's really, as we've developed this podcast, we're really committed to telling the real stories of entrepreneurship and being authentic and real and sincere in what we're putting out there, and not sugarcoating like there's some simple, easy steps here to make the riches, because that's not going to happen. The second part of the Tap the Potential solution for creating a highly profitable, great place to work is to niche down. Complexity is the enemy. And I remember a conversation that we had here at the retreat and it was at the table, I believe it was you, Chad Hatfield, and Steve Bousquet. All of you have been on the podcast. But the conversation was around the complexity of the business and how difficult it is as a contractor to niche down and get complexity out. I really believe that our greatest opportunity to have a sustainable business is to get as niche specific as possible, because that reduces layers of complexity. And when we have complexity in our businesses, we have vulnerability. And contractors in particular, especially if you're trying to be the one who can do everything, any project anybody calls you for, you got it. You can go out there and do it. That's a tremendous amount of complexity, and it makes it incredibly difficult to hire. So niching down and looking at what is that sweet spot that we can be really, really good at, that we have the opportunity to be the best in the world at, and then systematizing and automating around that and hiring around that very tight sweet spot. When I interviewed Mark Richardson for the book, one of the things that really stood out is how he started talking about, just taking a simple example. If you're going to focus on bath remodeling versus full service design build, and you just do bath remodeling, it's easier to hire somebody and train somebody because they're doing a very specific set of tasks over and over and over. And I know for myself, niching down has been very hard. I haven't talked to a single entrepreneur who has said, absolutely, I'm ready to niche down. I want to just get hyper focused. They may say that on the surface, but then as we go into it, all the resistance comes up because it feels like we're saying no to opportunity here, there, and everywhere by doing it. But ultimately, this is what I'm seeing, especially for contractors, but really for any entrepreneur. When we get hyper-focused on doing one thing and doing it really well, it becomes much easier for us to hire and build teams around that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in the sweet spot, and I think that every business really does have a sweet spot. And, being an opportunist myself for so many years, when I first heard, niche down or focus on one aspect of the business, I felt like somebody was lowering the ceiling, right? And putting me in a cage and say, you can still be a lion if you want to be a lion, but now you're in this little tiny cage, right? And now I just have to operate here. So, again, it all comes down to mindset, right? And I've said it in the past too, is that I would rather do, $2 million worth of business at a 40% profit than 10 million at 5%. And the labor market for all industries is getting more and more complex. There is more and more, online, social media and all kinds of things that are really impacting, the hiring process and also just employee engagement in general and how people are, nowadays employees or prospective employees are doing more research on the company than the company is actually doing on the employee. Right? I mean, the complexity is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that happens when we niche down is it gives us the opportunity to innovate. And that is where our opportunity is to grow our profit margin considerably when we are in a niche and we start innovating. And so what that looks like is I think about the company System Pavers, and they have automated their installation of pavers, and they've gotten away from having to rely on people to do it. That doesn't mean they don't have a big people focus. They have a huge people focus in their company. They have System Pavers University that they use as a recruiting tool. But they took something, they got very focused in one area, one thing they were going to do exceptionally well, and they invested in the automation around that. Now, I know for the typical remodeler contractor listening to this, you're thinking, I am not going to go, invest in automation. Like, that's a huge investment for something like that. That's not where you start. Where you start is identifying what is that sweet spot and then looking at what opportunities do I have to innovate around this sweet spot and what automation do I want to invest in to support the sweet spot. And there can be a plan for, long-term plan for automation, big automation down the road. But even in the interim, what automation might you invest in around that sweet spot? Because every time you put automation in, you're reducing your dependence just a little bit more on people. So less dependent on people, complexity goes down, makes the business more sustainable, which is really what we're after. The other thing about niching is there's a lot of opportunity to drive customer decisions, especially as a remodeler. So, telling your customer, look, you have these 3 choices of windows, and that one window is going to be a lot easier to install, less labor, less likelihood of mistakes than another kind of window. So you suggest they go with that window as long as it meets the criteria, the homeowner's criteria of what they're looking for. You're guiding their decision towards using a product that you can install more successfully, less chance of having to correct things and deal with problems or damaged product. So there's those opportunities and anytime you're not dealing with damaged materials, you're not having to do rework, guess what we're driving up? Profit, right? Yeah, profit. That's the key word here on the Profit by Design podcast. It's all about the profit. So I think that's a big piece of the solution. The fourth part of the Tap the Potential solution, and you'll like this one, Mike, build a lean and mighty team. you can get away without hiring, you absolutely should. No employees is better than a lot of employees.
True.
That's your entryway, Mike. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I do. One thing, and it's not even that complicated. So same thing we were talking about with, the flashiness, right? Of, fancy cars and this and that. Historically, the industry, construction industry in particular, was very focused on, at certain volume milestones, my company should look like X. So if I'm a $500,000 company, I'm more of an owner operator, maybe with a part-time estimator or part-time bookkeeper. And then if I'm 1 million, I have this many employees. And if I'm 2 million, I have this many employees, right? And it's almost, a badge of honor, right? An insignificant badge of honor that means nothing when you meet other people that are in business and you say, oh, what do you do? Oh, well, I'm a, remodeler. Oh, really? How many employees do you have? Right? You don't want to say 1 or 2 because it seems like you're a little boy, right? So you want to say 20, 30, or, oh, I had 40. Even to this day, I tell stories about when I did have 45 people on payroll, and it seems like, wow, that must have been really great, but it was my worst nightmare, right? So, certainly the quantity doesn't even come close to the quality. So you're better off having 1 quality employee instead of 5 not so good employees, right? So that's my 2 cents.
I totally agree. People are expensive and people are complex. So the more people we add into our business, the more complexity we are adding into our business, which is why you're saying, 30, 40, 50 employees, that's your worst nightmare. My gosh, who wants to deal with all that complexity, all the drama that comes with 40 something employees? And when we think about A players in these businesses, a lot of times entrepreneurs will say to me, I can't afford to hire an A player. I can't afford the talent that I need. Really what that's saying is I have not put my business into a position where I have a niche and a tightly defined sweet spot. Because if you had a niche and a tightly defined sweet spot, you need less labor. You need an A player, and you will be able to afford to pay that A player because you're producing the margin that you need. It takes a tightly defined sweet spot to produce the margin that you need to be able to pay those A players on your team. And when we have a team full of warm bodies, if you have 30 employees and you follow typical hiring practices, 10% of the population is going to be A players. So probably you have 3 A players on that team of 30 employees. So the rest, 27 warm bodies. Does that fit with what your experience was, Mike?
Pretty much.
Okay. All right. So, re-envisioning, and I didn't work with you when you had that many employees, but I would imagine if our paths had crossed at that point, and I didn't even have the solution developed at that time, but if I had, I would have said to you, whoa, Mike, let's look at right sizing your business. Is your business the right size? And if not, let's look at getting it the right size and getting the core team members aligned around the sweet spot, because your A players will be 900 to 1,200% more productive than your warm body employees. And so that's how you can get away with having fewer team members. And if you have a tightly defined niche, you can also get away with having fewer team members because there's repeatable tasks being done, and you can have different people swapping in and out if you need them to on those repeatable tasks. So smaller is better, lean and mighty teams. The other part of the Tap the Potential solution, this is one where entrepreneurs notoriously fall down, and I'm guilty of it myself. It's so easy to overlook it, and that is that we need to always be networking to fill future open roles in our businesses. So at the point where we have steady lead generation going on in our business, we need to be putting an intentional system in place to hire the best. And that means constant networking, just like we're always marketing in our business. Like if you stop marketing, business dries up. If we stop the recruiting process, we will never have the people that we need to have when we have roles open up in our business. And at Tap the Potential, because we help people with pumpkin planning and defining their sweet spot in their business, many of our clients are in rapid growth companies. They come to us, they're not in a rapid growth company, they're in a lot of debt. And we put the profit first system in place with them to get them out of debt and get the profit building in the business. And then we move into the pumpkin planning piece. And once we have solid pumpkin planning going on, that's where I start watching, because I know what's coming for those entrepreneurs. They're going to need to be hiring once that business really starts growing. And so that's where we get them to put in the how to hire the best networking, and just always being on the lookout for A players and building the relationships with them. So, and that's, the whole book is about how do you attract the best. I think we've done a lot of that on the podcast, talking about A player attraction strategies. So I don't want to go too granular on that. I just want to say, if your business is growing, you need to be thinking about right now, what roles are you going to be filling in the next 3 years? And what are you doing every single day to build relationships with people who could fill those roles for you? And in that, positioning yourself as an employer of choice. So, as we've gone through the How to Hire the Best book launch, we're doing a lot to educate entrepreneurs about what goes into creating a great place to work, and how do you set yourself up to be that employer of choice. And again, it's not hard. You have the intention here to create that great place to work. It's about getting the mindset right and then the behaviors behind it. And you can quickly go from being that business owner that your employees complain about at the barbecues on Friday with their buddies. Like, you won't believe what my boss made me do this week. And then he had me work these long hours, and then he yelled at me. Like, the nerve of that man. And I'm sure the language is not even that clean, but you get the gist, You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the boss that, when your employees are at the barbecue on the weekend, all their buddies are complaining, and your team member is saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I work for Mike Bruno. Oh my goodness. You wouldn't believe, I have it so good. You poor souls. You guys don't know how good it is. You want to have the word on the street about you, that your team members are out there, they're singing your praises, and they feel appreciative about the opportunity to work for you, because that really is what will create that steady pipeline of A players who will happily jump ship from their current job to come to work for you as soon as you have an opening and can accommodate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to that point, it's definitely, again, one of those, mind shift nuggets. I always thought to myself that when I filled the position that I was filling it for life, right? And it's not the case, right? For many reasons. People change, the business changes, the complexity changes. That person might move around in different roles within the company. You might, be growing and spots open. So absolutely, to think that it's one and done is not the case. And, constantly searching and putting yourself out there that you're looking for great people, is definitely the key to the success, no doubt.
Yeah. And, the thing about this is, even our long-term employees, a lot of times as we start growing, they may not stay with us. They may have been a great team member at the certain size of the business, but if the business is going to double, triple, quadruple over the next few years, all of a sudden the team that felt really great for that employee doesn't feel great anymore. And the employee may not be just may not be a good fit anymore. So we get complacent with our long-term employees and we say, oh, they'll be here forever. But just as you're speaking to, things may change, circumstances may change. And so we need to think about every role in our business. And if we were going to stack 3 deep, like we're building a football team and we want to have our reserve players that we can pull on, we want to have a stack 3 deep on our bench of people that if we called on them, they would be like, yeah, I'm ready to come to work for you. I've been waiting for you to call.
Right. So true. So we've talked, a lot about the different facets of the book. And, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of is that, all of the tools and, the system that you've outlined and all of the content, although this book is specifically for, was written for contractors, it's not just for contractors, right? So, if I'm a dentist or a florist or, whatever it may be, why don't you just speak to that a little bit, about how that as a whole, the entire system is universal across all business and can greatly help any entrepreneur.
Yeah. So at Tap the Potential, we believe very strongly in the power of cross-industry learning. And, like we do the retreats and we have people from different industries coming together at our retreats at Breakthroughs on the Bayou. And one of the things we hear over and over is how valuable it is to learn from business owners in other industries, because we're hearing things that is not the same information that's being circulated over and over at trainings and conferences that we go to that are within industry. And so the How to Hire the Best book was written that way. I deal with business owners across industries, and I'm looking at what's working in all these different industries, and that's what I've pulled together in How to Hire the Best. I focused it on contractors because as the first book came out, it was mostly contractors who were reaching out and saying, I'm not in a rural area. I'm a contractor. I'm in New Jersey or, San Francisco or all these other big metropolitan areas, and the hiring challenges were still there. And so that's how I knew that I needed to write the next edition to help this industry, because there is the greatest hiring challenge within this industry. But I think all of us entrepreneurs, I'm in the coaching and consulting industry, but I have learned a tremendous amount by focusing on the challenges that the construction industry has, because now I have the best tools, the sharpest tools to handle the hardest hiring challenges because it's focused on the construction industry. So a dentist reading this is going to say, I'm so glad I'm not a remodeler. I would never want to be in that industry. Thank goodness I'm a dentist. And I can use these strategies that remodelers are using to attract team members. I can hire my next dental hygienist using these same strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point because, why not take from the, one of the most difficult industries, develop all the strategies and tools, and then, like you said, cross-utilize it in other industries is very impactful.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things that makes me so excited to go in and update the How to Hire the Best course, is because now we've sharpened the tools in the construction industry as I get ready to offer this course live. I haven't taught it live in, I think, 3 years now. So I'm going to teach it live in November for the first time. It's going to be totally different. It's totally upgraded with the sharpest tools because I've been, just nose down in dealing with what are the challenges that contractors are dealing with.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to give you the last word, but before I do, I want to thank you for putting this book together and for helping me along the way and helping so many other people and people that are in all of our groups. And, it's really been life-changing. So I thank you.
Yeah. So I thank you, Mike, because you were a big inspiration in writing the book. You and Chad Hatfield both, you're featured prominently in the book from your experiences. And I appreciate both of you guys in particular because you were willing to share from your real experiences and put that out there. You're willing to be humble and vulnerable. And that makes the book that much more compelling reading, to have those real stories in there like that. And all the people who have contributed to this book, who've read early drafts, who've given me feedback, especially in the construction industry. And I'll tell on myself, there's a real funny thing in the book that almost happened. Mary Pierce told me at ProfitCon this past week, she said, you are going to read it one more time for grammatical errors, right? And I said, well, yeah, of course. And she said, because there's a big one in there. There's a really big one. No one caught it yet. And I said, what is it? And she said, it's flange. And I said, what? Where did I talk about flanges? And she said, well, there's a section. You need to find it because you're calling them phalanges. And so thank you, Mary Pierce, because otherwise you guys would have been reading the book and wondering, why is she talking about fingers? Flange. So
yeah, that's funny.
That was a big typo that was overlooked. So everybody who's contributed in getting this book to where it is, I so appreciate those, the big comments, the little comments. On the way out, one of the things I want to say, if you haven't done it yet, Profit Designers, please join us over in the How to Hire the Best Book Launch Ambassador group. Everyone who joins that book or that group, I'm going to send you an autographed copy of How to Hire the Best Contractors Edition. No charge. It's free. My gift to you. And then please help us spread the word. If you're in the ambassador group, help us spread the word to more contractors and entrepreneurs everywhere about this book, that it is really the solution to putting the end to hiring challenges once and for all for entrepreneurs everywhere. and particularly for contractors. So to join the Facebook group, go over to tapthepotential.com/ambassadors. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.